In this section, we're going to be going over a lot of the options and preferences and little fiddly things that you're going to find in Procreate that allow you to make this program your own. So to do that, in the upper left-hand corner, let's tap on that little wrench icon. We've taken a look at some of these things, but some of these sections we haven't even covered yet. For example, the canvas section. If I tap on that, I'm going to see a lot of options here pertaining to my canvas. The first one you're going to see is Perspective Guide. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. The next one is Flip Canvas Horizontally, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just going to flip my canvas completely over. I can also flip it vertically and make everything upside down. I can also copy the entire canvas to my clipboard and paste it into another application if I wanted to. This looks kind of weird upside down, so I'm just going to flip it back to the way it was. And I also have an option here called Canvas Metadata. If I open that up, it's going to tell me everything that I want to know about this drawing. For example, the dimensions are 2,732 by 2,048 pixels. It tells you the actual size of the image, also the recorded video size because I have video recording on and it's memorizing every single stroke, and also the quality of that video and how long it took me to get to this point in this illustration. The other option up at the top is Devices. If I tap on that, you're going to see I have several things listed here. If you're not familiar with styluses and the companies that make styluses, this may look like gibberish to you. But basically what these are different styluses that you can connect to your iPad. So if you do get a Bluetooth stylus and you want it to work with Procreate, this is where you would go to hook up that stylus. Usually when you tap on one of these, there's an option to sync that stylus with Procreate so it knows it exists. And so you could take advantage of all the cool things that stylus could do. Next up are our preferences. If I tap on that, there are a lot of options here. The first one is I can switch to a light interface, which takes me from these dark colors to much lighter colors. I personally like the dark, so I'm going to switch that on back. The next option is Fit Canvas Inside Interface. Turning this on lets me zoom in and out of my canvas, and if I pinch in really quick and let go, it'll zoom back out to my interface. Sometimes it'll rotate it as well. Let's try that again. No, it's not working. There we go. Worked that time. Since that's on, you can see that there are some gray borders because it's actually showing me that the top of the canvas isn't lined up with the top of the iPad. It's lined up with this little gray line at the top there. We have Canvas Orientation Memory, which just remembers how your canvas was oriented when you were using the iPad. We have the brush cursor that shows you the brush cursor as we're using it. So if I toggle it on and I draw with a brush, you'll see a little cursor at the front of it that actually shows a little brush cursor. This is very common in desktop applications, so it gives you the option here on the iPad as well. Next up is right hand interface. That little slider on the left hand side there, we can move it to the right hand side and shift things around. I'm going to move it back to the left hand side, and there it is. There's the classic color picker, which changes our color picker up here to this box format instead of the circle format. And then there are some sliders underneath. The first is Auto Hide Interface. And I showed you before that by pressing with 4 fingers, you can hide that interface and just paint like this. And you can set that thing to auto hide if you'd like. I have it disabled because I like my interface at all times, but if you'd like, you can set it from anywhere from only a fraction of a second all the way up to like 10 seconds before it hides the interface. I'm going to slide it back off because I don't need it. Quick line delay is the same idea. I can actually disable quick line if I don't want any straight lines on a particular drawing. I can set quick line to snap at a minute or at a 1.5 seconds. I like to set it down to about a half a second, usually does it for me. Same thing with rapid undo delay. If I take 2 fingers and I tap them on my canvas, it will undo. And if I take those 2 fingers and hold it down on the canvas, it will execute multiple undos quickly. But if you accidentally rest 2 fingers on the canvas for whatever reason, it might start doing that really fast and accidentally undo a lot of things. Now, you can use 3 fingers to redo quickly, but if you think it kicks into undo too fast after setting your fingers down on the canvas, you can slide this up so it takes longer before that activates. I'm going to slide it back down to about a half a second with that one as well. Selection mask visibility. If let me grab my selection tool here, I'll grab that, and when I close it, you can kind of see the mask. It's hard to see because I only have it set to about 4%. If I go up here, I can change my visibility quite a bit. And now when I make a selection, that's not my selection tool. That is my selection tool. Now when I select something, you can see that mask really, really well. I'm going to turn my selection mask back down, probably to about 8%, works pretty well. Next up is the pressure curve. If you're using a stylus, this comes in really, really handy. If you think your strokes are being registered too quickly with your stylus or pencil, you can slide this over. Same thing if you want it to get thicker faster, I can slide this line over and it changes that pressure curve. Or I can add a curve in the middle. Move this top one way over here, and you can see you can adjust that pressure curve as you need it. I think it's fine the way it is for what I do. Some artists like a little tighter pressure curve, so those options are there for you. So I'm going to tap reset, and then I'm going to go back. Next, we're getting into the advanced gesture controls. If I tap on that, I'm going to get a lot of options. So up at the top, what we have is I've enabled my iPad to work with either my finger or the Apple Pencil. But say I only wanted my Apple Pencil to paint, I could select paint only so that I couldn't accidentally tap on a menu with my Apple Pencil, or I couldn't use the erase tool with my Apple Pencil. I could only use the paint tool with my Apple Pencil. And so you can actually go in and specify that level of detail. I'm going to keep it on selected tool. This comes in handy if you have a stylus that doesn't have really good palm support. So if I have touch enabled here, I might not want to be able to paint with touch. I might just want touch to be able to use gestures and use my stylus for everything else. Procreate makes it really easy to do that just by selecting gestures only. I find with the Apple Pencil it has very good palm rejection, so I don't need that. So I just keep it on selected tool. And down below that we have the eyedropper, and these are shortcuts for using the eyedropper tool. If you don't want to press and hold on the canvas too long, you can use a shortcut. So let me close out of this and show you how that works. On the left-hand side of our screen, we have our sliders. And in between those sliders is this little square. If I hold down this square and then I tap anywhere on the canvas, my eyedropper tool is going to come up. So that way I don't have to press and hold. I can just use that extra button and grab whatever color I need. I'm going to go back into those advanced gesture controls. And you can see here you could set that square for tap. You can set that square to be held and then touching the canvas, or you could just use the Apple Pencil. So there are a lot of options here as well. You also have the slider down here, which means it can take longer for your eyedropper to appear when you're holding your finger down, or it can take even less time. I just set it right smack dab in the middle because that seems to work really well for me. And beside it on the right hand side, we have something called the quick menu. I have it turned off, but I'm going to toggle it back on and show how this works. So I'm going to close out of that. And now if I just gently touch anywhere on the canvas, I bring up my quick menu. As you see here, I have a lot of options. I can flip my canvas horizontally, bring up my click menu again. I can do that again. I can merge my layers down. I can create a new layer. So if you want to quickly get to these kind of functions, you can do that. I'm going to flip my canvas on back. Now that quick menu is also customizable. So if I bring that up and I tap on, say, new layer and hold it for a second, I have some options. I can change this to a lot of things. Fill layer. I can change it to merge down. I can change it to paint, paste, perspective assist. I can even do a select brush and have custom brushes tapped to my quick menu if I want to switch between brushes really quickly. So you can see where the quick menu can really come in handy. I don't really use the quick menu that much, so I'm going to go back in here to advanced gestures, and I'm going to just toggle that off for now, and then I'm going to close that and go back to my image. And lastly, in the actions, the very last thing we have is the help section. So if I tap on help, I have basically help. Tapping on what's new is going to take you to a web page that tells you about what is new in Procreate. You can also restore your purchases. There's advanced settings, which I'll tap on in a second. Customer support, which takes you to their customer support page. Community is going to take you to their forum, and Discover More is going to take you to their website as well. But before I leave this section, I want to go to the advanced settings, which is going to actually take me to the iPad settings themselves. And we were in here a couple lessons ago, and I was just talking about the recording quality at the time, but there's other stuff in here as well. For example, if I don't want Procreate to have access to my photos, I can toggle that off. If I don't want it to have access to my camera, I can toggle that off. If it drives me nuts that my canvas is being rotated, I can toggle that off here as well. There's also palm support, which is kind of interesting. I don't use this at all. Again, I think it's because the iPad Pencil's palm support is so good that I don't need it, so I just have it disabled in Procreate right now. The next is maximum speed distance. This is an older setting. Before we had pressure-sensitive styluses, Procreate could vary the width of your stroke based on how fast you drew it. And so you could adjust your speed distance by using this slider here. We also have our time-lapse recording quality. We went over this before, but I can disable that completely, or I can have higher quality. I like studio quality because it gives me a nice crisp image. I use that a lot on my YouTube channel. And then lastly, we can restore the default artworks. Procreate came with several paintings. If you accidentally delete those, but you want to bring them up and just take a look at them, you can do that here by just swapping that little thing on. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot about the simplified undos. Basically what happens is if you're doing an adjustment and you don't want to do the granular undoings on those adjustments and things like that, you can toggle this on and off. It's a pretty advanced setting. I don't ever really touch it. I'm going to jump back to Procreate here and show you something kind of neat. So now that we're back in Procreate, I want to show you one last thing before we leave these settings. I'm going to tap on the wrench and I'm going to go to Canvas. And there's something here called Perspective Grid. Now, at the time of this recording, the Perspective Grid is an experimental feature that they're working on, and they're charging like an extra $3 for it. So it's possible that your version of Procreate doesn't have this, and you might not need it. But if you draw a lot of things that are in perspective, this might be a really useful tool for you. So I'm going to toggle that on, and it's going to turn on this grid that you can see over my character here. And I can edit this grid as well. So if I go in here, this is 3-point perspective. So I can change my perspective by moving these lines around. As you can see, it's pretty handy. And now I can say I am done. And if I want to draw lines on this perspective, Procreate makes this really easy. What I have to do is I have to open my layers, and then I tap on the layer I'm going to be drawing on. And one of the options here is assist. So if I tap that, this is now an assisted layer. So I'm going to grab a white color so we can actually see my pen. And now when I draw, it is going to line up with my perspective grid. I'm going to shrink down this line so you can see it. So you can see that all my points are now going to that perspective. So that is pretty cool, and it's a great way to draw quickly in a perspective. So sorry to throw so many things at you in one section. There are just a lot of options and things that you can do in Procreate to change it around, make it your own, and really customize it.